Integrating fun foods without feeling miserable.
Speaking of that, we actually had barbecue a little bit ago. So, boom.
Anything is possible. And guess
Yep.
what? We're still feeling good. So let's talk about how you can do the same for yourself. Well, food should be fun, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're around it all the time. Um,
Food is life. It gives
it,
you
it,
life.
it
You
literally
should be
does.
able to enjoy it. I know there's plenty of people that's like, oh, it's just like fuel, eat to survive. It's like, let's be real. We want to enjoy it.
Yeah,
Those aren't our people.
yeah, I'm gonna say you're probably not one of those people, and if you are, I'm surprised you're still here. No, I'm just kidding. But it should be fun and not miserable, okay? And so, what do we mean by this? Well, when integrating fun food, we've often called this even like taboo
Well,
food.
we have and other people.
This is true. Maybe it's your kryptonite food. Maybe it's you're like, I shouldn't eat this food,
But
whatever
thinking
you want to
about it,
call it.
it's probably the food that you think like you shouldn't be eating,
Yes.
or the world tells you, hey, you can't eat that and be healthy.
Yeah. But when integrating these types of foods, it's not fun to be hangry, right? Like who wants to be hangry? It's a new term these days that the kids are all using. But no one wants to be hangry because it's not fun. And so you also don't want to be like starving the days leading up to it because you're just like, I'm not gonna eat because I'm gonna eat all the calories on this day that I'm gonna eat this fun food, right? And then you don't want to be starving the day of because you're like, well, I'm saving all my calories till, 7 p.m. at night when I go out to dinner. And then I'm hangry leading up to it. And then I'm going to continue to eat all the things. And then you also don't want to feel shitty days after, right? Because you ate all the things and maybe you did it in a way that you weren't happy with or whatever.
Or even immediately after.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because then you're just like, babe, adjust the head of the bed up. Trust me, we've been there. It doesn't feel good. We will tell you that right now. But let's talk about how to integrate these fun foods without starving yourself.
Before or after.
Yes, exactly. So there are definitely some factors to think about. So one of the factors is well, like, how much fun do I want to have? And so, like, what exactly are these fun foods that you want to eat, and how much of them, and how much do you want to enjoy?
Yeah, it's like, am I gonna have pizza? And do I want to have the whole pizza? Am I sharing with other people? Like all of these things. And it sounds crazy, but the reality is that a lot of times it's hard when we don't have an idea or a plan going into something. And that's typically when we act inappropriately, so to speak.
Yep.
Right. And so having a little bit of a plan allows you to act with awareness and intention.
For sure. Other couple factors to think about is like total calories. Well, like how many calories are you actually currently working with in the day, within the week? Like, are you calorie cycling? What about the number of meals? Like, how many meals are you going to eat that day? And what do those other meals look like? Protein targets, how much protein does your body need to operate? And does the amount that you're going to consume that day, will it satiate you? Meal timing, when are you going to actually eat these meals? How is your protein and all of your other meals spaced out for the day? So these are some things that are like, wow, shit, I don't think I would have thought about that. Boom, you're thinking about it now.
Yep.
So first one, what and how much fun? How much fun are you going to have? So what are you enjoying? Are we talking like fatty steak that's high in fat, some protein? Are we talking pizza, which is high in carbs and fat, cake, high in carbs and fat, alcohol, strictly just carbs?
And sometimes you may not know, like if it is like an event or a party or you're going to something else, you just know, hey, look, like I'm going to go, they're going to have food. You can have an idea of what that may look like and setting aside, a certain amount of calories for that event.
For sure.
Because sometimes you may not know exactly what it is, but still using the opportunity to plan ahead.
For sure. And you want to make sure that like when you are doing this, is it like, am I literally saving up all my calories for this particular food? Like, well, that's something to think about. And while we don't tell you to swing either which way, it's all up to you and what you can and are willing to do. And so that's where we start to go into like, what are your total current calories? Well, the first step with that is like, are you in a calorie deficit? Like that's going to make a difference. Like maybe you don't want to allot a lot of calories to this fun food because guess what? You're probably going to be super hungry days after and or the days leading up to it because you're already working with less calories. Are you on a maintenance? Like or a slight surplus. Like, well, those are a lot more doable when it comes to some of these fun foods, and especially depending on how much of these fun foods that you want to take up when it comes to your calories.
And sometimes taking a look at your overall calories, what phase you're in allows you to decide one, like if it's worth it at this
Totally.
time, And sometimes it allows you to go, oh, like it is worth it, but I'm not going to have as much as I would at some other time. So
Yep,
like if it is pizza, it's like, hey, cool, I'll have a slice, I'll share something. Or if it is something sweet, it's like, oh, cool, like I'll just have, a few pieces of candy or something small. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to throw it out the window, but
totally.
it may help you be intentional with like how much you're going to have during that phase. And sometimes when you look at it and you're like, hey, look, I can only fit in half an Oreo, not worth it.
Like,
I'd
what's the
rather,
point?
yeah. And so that's why taking the time to think ahead can really set you up for success because you look at it and it's like, oh, like realistically, all I can fit in right now is XYZ.
It's not worth it.
I'd
I'd
rather
rather wait.
pass,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And that's where like calorie cycling can definitely come into play and be helpful. Where, oh, I'm going to, when I have my higher calorie days, because I have a higher amount of calories, it allows you that wiggle room to be able to fit in these fun foods. However, if you're still in an overall, like we'll say, calorie deficit for the high or for the week, regardless of how high those calories are, you could still be setting yourself up for, we'll say, not success, um, if you're designating a certain amount of calories towards it. But once again, this is all an experiment, and it's one of those things where you have to decide what isn't worth it for you when it comes to the way that you feel and how much you are or aren't allotting yourself each day with these.
And doesn't that doesn't even have to mean like what exactly your body needs, but a lot of what happens with food is mental, emotional, whatever. And so it's like, hey, outside of your biological needs, we're emotional creatures. And so
Yep.
like even if it's like biologically this works to have these calories on these days, and the math is perfect for overall weight loss, if you hate life or you're miserable or you feel like you're gonna snap, or you go into the event not being able to control yourself because you are so hungry, then it's like, oh, this doesn't actually work for you. And this is one of the things that does make it where it's like it is very unique for every individual person, because what works for me may not work for her and may not work for you.
And what works for you now might not work for you in the future.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things where it's like taking a look at all of these, moving parts, so to speak, and figuring out how you want to try moving forward.
Yep. The other thing is like the day that you're going to be integrating this fun food, the number of meals. So how many meals are you going to eat? And what are those other meals? So like depending on what your fun food is that you're integrating, like if it's cake, well, guess what? Unless it's like a protein style cake, and even if it is a protein style cake, most of them doesn't have enough protein to meet your protein intake for the day. And so that means that your other meals are probably going to be more protein focused, right? Fiber also helps with satiation. So protein and fiber is going to help satiate you. And so figuring out like, okay, like protein and veggies, like what can I eat? Maybe some voluminous veggies to make sure that it expands my stomach because this calorie dense food probably isn't going to take up much room in my stomach. And so deciding how many other meals you're going to have. But that comes down to how many calories do you have left for those meals,
And I
right?
would say, challenge you guys in this situation. I think that the natural response is, well, how many meals do I normally eat? And maybe on days where you're having fun food, you don't eat the same amount of meals. So if you're someone that typically eats 3 or 4 times a day or even twice a day, and then like when you're having fun foods, maybe the number of meals changes for that day. So once again, taking a look at all of the variables, if you're someone that sticks with 3 meals, maybe on fun food days, you only have 2 meals, because it leaves you a little bit more calories. You can space meals out differently, and move it around. So just because you do something on other days doesn't mean you have to do it all the days.
Totally. Your protein target. So what's your minimum protein intake? And is that, even if it is your minimum, if you're like, hey, this is the amount that I need to sustain my muscle mass, like, does that actually satiate you? So like asking yourself those types of things. And then once again, depending on what this fun food is, you might need some leaner sources of protein for that day in order to hit those targets. But making sure that you're consuming enough protein that day can help with that satisfaction and satiation. And as he was kind of mentioning, the amount of meals that also plays a factor with meal timing. So maybe like the question is when are you gonna eat your fun food? So if it's you're going out to dinner, well, depending on how many calories you've saved up for dinner, if you're left with like 100 calories for the rest of the day, and you're not eating till 7 o'clock at night, that might be kind of challenging, right? And so seeing like, okay, rather than going to a dinner at 7 p.m., like, could I go to an early dinner? And if so, like rather than saving all of my calories for dinner, is there a way that I'd be able to try a variety of food and not have to designate so many calories? So for instance, like we like to, we'll go, we'll split an appetizer, we'll split an entree, split a dessert. And so we each get to try a little bit of it all. And so like maybe like I don't need as many calories as this guy here. And so rather than like sharing 50-50 down the way, it's more like, I probably only need 1/3 of the burger and he eats 2/3 of the burger, kind of a thing. So
So it works
even
out for me and everyone.
but even thinking about like those types of things, and then when you are going out to eat, even if like we'll say the timing's not up to you, maybe like for us, we know like some places don't open until 5 o'clock, and even 5 o'clock can be kind of late depending on the type of person you are. But can you push your first meal if you have calories for that first meal? Can you push it a little bit back to when you first eat? So rather than eating right when you first wake up, like could you wait a couple hours? Because as you probably know, the sooner that you eat, the sooner you start, like we'll say, stoke the metabolic fire. And it causes you to be just like hungrier sooner because you're like, oh, I'm up, I'm eating. All right, my body's doing it, it's digesting, I'm moving around. Ooh, it's time to eat again. And it almost becomes like a habitual thing as well.
Yeah, and one of our mentors used to joke sometimes, the sooner you eat, the sooner you will want to eat
Exactly.
again.
Yep.
And so in these situations where if you do have calories reserved for later in the day, pushing your first feeding back a little bit will definitely help. And then, like she was saying, sometimes even the opposite is true. If your, fun meal is going to be breakfast, then maybe not having it earlier, pushing it back to a brunch or a little bit later. So the rest of the day, you're not miserable or fighting things, and so it works on both ends. Of hey, if you're gonna have fun at dinner, then making sure that you plan the rest of your day appropriately. And if the majority of your calories are going to be earlier in the day, maybe even pushing them back, so that way the rest of the day you're not trying to fight to make it through and going to bed. Like we see fun stuff on Instagram or Facebook all the time. It's like, I'm just going to go to sleep because my fitness pal says I'm out of calories,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you don't want to be in that
Yeah.
situation.
So like if you're like, screw you, I'm going to have one meal today and it's going to take up all my calories and I'm going to consume, we'll say 2,000 calories in a single sitting or however many calories you're consuming in that sitting. Why don't you try it for brunch?
Yeah, try it middle of the day, as close to the middle of the day as you can get it. Um, can speak from personal experience. Probably the best.
Yeah, no, like really, because you're not like starving yourself in the morning, like you've eaten plenty of calories to be able to hopefully satiate you to the rest of the evening. If you do get hungry in the evening, more than likely it's probably some type of emotional hunger. Like that is the, we'll say, unfortunate reality of things. So how do we calculate in this fun food? So this is how to eat your food and hit your protein targets. Well, first you have to decide how many fun food calories you're going to put for your total calories, right? So you want to subtract your fun food calories from the total calories that you have designated for that day. So if you have 2,200 calories for the day and your fun food is taking up 1,200 calories, that means you have 1,000 calories left.
And realizing that most of the time this will probably be a guesstimation.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, I'm going out, it'll probably be around this many calories, so no need to try to split hairs on exactly how much. If you have the exact calories, fantastic.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's probably going to be a guesstimation.
And then the other reality is that even if you have the exact calories, let's be real, you go to Chipotle, and it depends on how nice you are to the person.
Yep.
Depends on your serving size. There's gonna be pros and cons to that,
Or you
right?
may have the perfect idea, and then when you go for the night, things change, right? Like you're just
Exactly.
like, oh, it's going to be all of these things, and you go and they're out of something,
Yeah.
or it took a little bit longer, or who
Yeah.
knows.
All right. So now that you know how many calories you have left, well, we're just gonna like throw a designation of like, okay, I have 1,000 calories left, but I also have 120 grams of protein left to hit of those calories. So if you take 120 grams times 4 calories per gram, because that's what protein has, we know that we need to consume 480 calories worth of protein.
And that's if you're just doing like straight like lean per like egg whites,
Yes.
right? So keep that in mind. Obviously, if you're having anything other than egg whites or something that has no fat, it'll probably carry a little bit more calories.
Yep. All right, now how many, we'll say, other calories left do we have? So like other calories that, it could be considered protein, carbs, and fats, however you want those to be. Well, if you have 1,000 calories left after you've eaten your taboo food, we know that 480 of those calories are going to go towards protein. Now we have 520 calories to consume from protein, carbs, and fats. which means how many meals are we going to eat with those? Well, we're going to divide the remaining calories by the number of meals that we're going to eat. So if I have 1,000 calories left, I want to eat 2 meals. That means I'm going to have 500 calories per meal. And I know that I need to have 60 grams of protein per meal in order to hit the remaining 120. And then I have about 260 calories from, we'll say, other foods. So deciding the sources, like realistically, like lean protein sources for most people when they go out and have fun foods is going to be key, as well as like low calorie veggies. So like chicken breast, romaine, fat-free Greek yogurt, protein powder, etc. So here's a couple food source ideas. So egg whites, that's always a great one because a lot of these, we're talking like low calorie and we're talking high volume. So high in protein, going to expand your stomach, going to satiate you. You can have tuna's great, fat-free yogurt, shrimp, pork tenderloin, white fishes, low-fat, fat-free cheeses, cottage cheese, having like cottage cheese bowls, 96 for lean ground beef, chicken thighs, chicken breast. There's so many options. You just have to think ahead. Then we have low-calorie carb sources. Yes, you're at this point in your life where veggies are carbs because that is the reality. They are carbs.
They carry carbs, so
Yes,
think
they
of them
are
as
they are a
such.
low starch carb.
Yeah, a lot of people think, oh, it's gonna be like rice, pasta, bread. It's like in this situation, if we're trying to reserve as many calories for later in the day, time to be a grown up and have some veggies.
Yes. Cucumber, celery, lettuce, rice cauliflower, phenomenal. Tomatoes, zucchini, asparagus, berries and fat-free yogurt mixed with some protein powder. Amazing. Like these are all really good options that are going to help with your fiber, with filling up your stomach, giving you those micronutrients as well.
And everyone's different, right? Because I mean, for her, she loves to she wants to go crazy with the veggies and all that to have as much volume as possible. I am a volume eater as well, but if I'm trying to reserve calories for later, I'm just like, hey,
I just want egg whites.
I'll just do egg whites and chicken breasts are just like straight protein because I'm like selfishly want to reserve as many calories as I can for later in the day. It's like
I like to have an actual meal.
yeah, she's like, I want a meal. I'm like, you can hold the celery on mine. I just want egg whites, because I'd rather have the 2 calories for later.
Yeah, there you go. See? But if you're not a person that's like him and you're maybe more like me, here's some low calorie meal ideas that you can do. The simplest one on here, outside of the fact of eating straight meat and egg whites, I mean, realistically, this is going to take more of your calories, but protein cereal and a protein shake, like it's pretty low in calories depending on the type of protein cereal that you choose and pretty high in protein for the most part.
And what she means by that is get a protein cereal and instead of using milk, use a protein shake for your milk.
Yep.
It tastes amazing and it's a huge bang for your buck in regards to protein.
Yep. This is what I was talking about. Fat-free Greek yogurt, mix some protein powder in there, top it with some berries, even adding frozen cauliflower. Yes, you're like, screw you. No, you'll love me.
Don't knock it till you try it.
Don't knock it till you try it. There, you cannot taste frozen, not fresh, frozen cauliflower. It gives it the volume and your fiber. Egg white omelets with some low-fat cheeses. You can add some Canadian bacon is also another really good low-fat, high-protein meat option. Add some spinach and mushrooms. You can do some lettuce wraps, so some tuna with some yogurt and or cottage cheese. Put it in lettuce, add some tomatoes. Here you go. Here's just straight meat and veg, chicken and broccoli.
That's gotta be your best friend. Meat and veg.
Meat and veg, chicken and zucchini, chicken cauliflower rice, stir fry, some ground chicken or lean beef with some cabbage and bell peppers. A couple more zoodles or noodles or whatever, with some type of ground meat. Do a little marinara sauce. Top it on some.
Are pretty good.
The palminis are pretty good. I agree. Oh, so are the shiritakis.
If you like artichoke, I feel like they kind of taste a little bit like artichoke.
They do because they have the tang.
Yeah, but like really good. So if you like artichoke and you're trying to have a low calorie pasta, I'd give them a try.
Yeah. But like low calorie bowls, those are also great using some like pork tenderloin, cauliflower rice, tomatoes, corn, cilantro. Doing like a cottage cheese bowl, topping it with some chicken and some veggies, like phenomenal, super easy options.
Oh.
Here's one of our favorite hacks. If you haven't seen it, we talk about it often, but here's just to like revisit it. The Super Bowl theory. This is where basically you subtract your fun food from your total calories. And then in your nutrition tracker, you hit your protein. So pick a lean protein source, make sure you hit your protein. And then once you've hit your protein, you fill the rest of that with low calorie veggies and sauces. So like when I'm talking sauces, we typically gravitate towards like G Hughes sauce, like the sugar-free sauces, or even using like cottage cheese and yogurts, like also phenomenal.
Or mustard.
Mustard,
Or and like
red vinegar.
in this situation, depending, like you probably will have utilized all of your fats, but if you didn't, then a little bit of olive oil as a
Yep.
sauce or some type of fat to be able to mix it up and moisten it if you need and you have the room.
Yep. So hit your protein, fill the rest with like leafy green veggies or zucchini or all of the things on the previous slide. Those types of things. And then basically you mix it in a big bowl and then divide it in however many containers you want to eat it in the day. And
Yep.
then you eat those and then you enjoy your fun food. Super
Yep.
simple. But in conclusion, integrating fun foods should be fun and not miserable. So biggest things when it comes to this is planning ahead and deciding what and how much fun food do you want to eat? How are you going to time your meals to set you up for success? How many calories do you have left to eat? How much protein do you have left? How many meals are you going to eat with that? And then what food sources are you going to eat? But if you have any questions, be sure to submit a burning question or apply for a breakthrough session.